G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope you are super well. In this first look episode, we are going to take a quick look at the brand new full frame, fully manual 18mm f5.6 Pancake lens from 7Artisans. And here it is on the beautiful Nikon ZF. It's going to be coming out for Z mount, E mount, and for L mount. There's not a great deal I can tell you about this lens. I've shot with it a little bit. It's 5.6. It's fixed at 5.6. You can manually focus from 30 centimeters out to infinity, and the rest is just in the images. And here is some of that. Fixed 18mm, fixed 5.6. We are on the Z6 1/1000th of a second. With some of these images, I hadn't told the camera yet that we were on this particular non-CPU lenses, so you'll see this data come and go. But some of the time, I did. There is no question, if you want to get this lens in focus, you have to do focus magnification and look at the pixels that you're focusing on and make sure you're eyeballing that they are as sharp as possible. There's really no other way to do it. I have the record button mapped to a 200% magnification. That way I can zoom right in. And for example, here I was zooming in on the player in yellow and getting them sharp. And then the results are impressive. This is at 100%. And we're on the Z6 III, so 24 megapixels. This is 18mm full frame. And I think it's really important to reiterate that this lens is only $89 US. So sure, you don't have control over the field of view. You don't have control over the aperture. $89. Extraordinarily affordable, and I do think delivering results. And another thing I love about this lens is the size. It's so small, you can actually slip it in a pocket and take it with you. And when you're out on a day like this, I've gone to the Australian Open, having it in your pocket is just really useful. I just wanted to show you how sharp it is here in the middle. Now we're on the Z8 in this particular image. It's perfectly capable of resolving a high-res image and giving us a sharp outcome. This is pixel for pixel. The handhold here on the Ferris wheel are absolutely sharp. They look great, and all of this through here is sharp as well. Now, you still have to do that magnification and get it in focus, otherwise you kind of can't tell. But once you do, 5.6 and 18mm, it's giving you a large depth of field, and we can see that whole Ferris wheel is in focus. I'm actually quite close to it, standing in a car park, essentially across the road from it. Do you like photographing bridges like I do? And again, 18mm wide, useful for this sort of situation. Let's bring those clouds into play a little bit more by bringing down the highlights. Let's bring up the contrast a little. And yay, we've got a lovely result here from this lens into 100% here. And we look at this safety wire that's a fair distance from where I'm standing, probably something like 50 or more meters. That's absolutely rendering perfectly on the Z8. Now, I do think this lens is sharper in the middle than it is on the edges. Of course, we've got, not only do we have distortion over here in the corner, and not only is this a long way away, and I cannot change the depth of field, I do think this lens is better in the middle than it is at the edges. Now, we can create depth of field. This is the corner. This is not where I focused. And we go up here and you can clearly see the focus is existing towards the top of these high tension power lines. Pixel for pixel, all of that looks really sharp. Yeah, it is in the center of the frame, but this lens is capable of getting sharp images. Just be in that center sort of 50% of the frame and make sure that you get critical focus. That's up to you. This is a fully manual lens. I haven't done very much to this other than bring up the shadows. If you wanted to bring a little bit more of sense of sharpness to it, then you can be playing around with this here. We can adjust clarity, and this increases the perception of sharpness along with structure, but that becomes more obvious if you use too much of it. If I recall correctly, I was getting critical focus here on this building in the center, and yes, that looks pretty good. Let's just pull that back a bit. I think that's a little bit unrealistic, but you get an idea of the sharpening that's possible. $89 US. Pretty good for such a wide angle lens. Yes, 5.6. You have to keep that in mind. I quite like this shot. I think it might look better in black and white. Nice. Hit harder on the contrast. Bring those highlights down a lot. And to me, I really like that. That's quite interesting. Look, if I was a student, for example, one use case, if I was a student and I got to play around with this sort of lens, this sort of outcome, I think I'd be pretty happy. I really can't see a lot of distortion going on there. I didn't check it specifically for distortion, but if it's there, it is being minimized. Now, I'm specifically showing you this image, and there is some video footage that also shows this, but this is what the flare, this is the sun hitting the front element of the lens. Very interesting little thing going on down here in the corner. And there's that sun. I've just moved the frame ever so slightly to catch the sun directly. Chromatic aberration appears to be handled very well considering the price point. I do think there is a very, very small amount of it, but it is not distracting. And they had this mist machine to try and keep everyone lovely and cool. And I just love the way these images look. I think they're quite beautiful. We could bring up the contrast on that one even more to make it even more otherworldly. Let's bring up the shadows a little bit more. Let's bring down the highlights, and you can just decide what level of background that you want there. But that to me is a lovely evocative image of the day that I saw. I think it's handling high backlight situations really well. This is looking directly into the sun, flare in the bottom right hand corner. I quite like that for character. If you look at the metadata here, we can actually see that it is the Nocti, and it's not the Nocti. It's way too wide to be the Nocti. I just forgot to change the CPU information when I was rushing to shoot the Aurora. I was just so excited. This is I think the very first time that I used it. I was in quite a hurry and I was quite desperate to get results. At 100%, the park bench is looking great. This is a 60-second exposure. Pretty happy with that level of result. Would you buy a lens like this for astro? I think the answer is probably not. What we can see here is that it is, and it was, possible to get a result. We could have decreased the time significantly. 60 seconds, could have increased the ISO to something like 3200, and that would have allowed us to go down to something like 15 seconds. So it's all a matter of what you want to do. I like to look at the sensor without any extra noise reduction. This is me not using any external noise reduction. We are still inside Capture One. So I think this is a pretty outstanding result. Another image from this lens. Now, if we look down at the bottom here, I think we can see distortion right at the very edge. That's the horizon. Another 60-second exposure. That's okay. These things can be corrected. It's an $89 lens. We wouldn't push it this hard, but I just wanted to show you that that's what it's looking like in those dark areas. If you look across the different use cases that I have here, a summer afternoon at the beach, you know, a casual Aurora as one has in one's life, and at the tennis and as a streetscape lens, absolutely makes sense. This is walking towards the beach, just a casual everyday shot, really quite well rendered if we have a look closely here. Now this is at the bottom of frame, and I would say that's looking quite sharp. We're pixel for pixel on the Z8 and looking directly into the sun. We can see how it's flaring at the sun, which actually I quite like, and then down the bottom here is also a flare. I don't recall where I had critical focus, but it probably is looking like it's somewhere out at these breaking waves. A good render, and we're on the Z8. Does this lens vignette? Yes, absolutely it does. We can see it here. I've deliberately pumped up the contrast to show it. We can pull it back. It's not as obvious, but of course, vignetting, it's just one of those things that we don't really need to worry about anymore. You can remove it very simply. Now, I've just observed here in this image something blue down there in these corners. If you notice this here and this here, I'm a little perplexed. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a reflection of what's at the top. I haven't noticed this in any of the other images that we've looked at. So that's a little bit of a mystery. If anybody's got a theory on what might be going on there, please do let us all know. But you can see it here in this image, and perhaps in this image. So I'm just wondering, is that something to do with looking towards the sun? And it may well be. Yeah, I don't think it's happening in this image. I don't think. It's hard to tell. Or in these images. Yes, so it might have something to do with the sun bouncing around inside that lens. This is 13 seconds handheld. We are after sunset. We're down at Phillip Island. We go into 100%, and focus appears to be here in the foreground somewhere. I think we can safely say in the corners this lens is distorting, and it certainly is not maintaining the same level of sharpness. Now, as you can see from the images, this is a great little lens. Does what the price tag says it will do. It's extraordinarily affordable. What's great about this lens is it's absolutely tiny. I would say that is struggling to be an inch deep. It's quiet and it's light and it's well built. It's absolutely an all metal construction with a metal mount. There's absolutely no contacts tracks. So you are not going to get any EXIF data or focusing help. You are going to get nothing, no AF, and there is no aperture. It is a fixed aperture. The focus ring, it's quite firm. So you are absolutely not going to accidentally change the focus. What's interesting when you're this wide, and it is really wide, and you're at 5.6, pretty much everything is in focus all the time. Now, you can break that. You can change that. If you want to focus at something that's really close, you will be able to make the background out of focus. But if you fix this at something in the middle of its range, somewhere in the middle of its focus range, and you are at 5.6 and you are at 18 millimeters, chances are that everything's going to look in focus. This is built well. It has some absolute heft to it, which I think is super nice. Really, there's not much to say about it. If you want something very small and very light that will work, that is very versatile, it'll even work in low light situations because most cameras that you will use this with will probably have some form of in-body image stabilization. So you'll be able to go down to some pretty low shutters. Would I consider it a nighttime lens? You'll be working hard to make this work at night and your ISOs will be pushed up a little bit, but you could still get away with it. So for a sort of travel and street lens, fabulous. Working during the day, fabulous. This is fun. This is just getting you into a wide angle lens. An 18mm is wide, very, very cheaply, not much weight, and it's very small as well. It's a good option if you want to have a play. And as I said, even so you've got to manually focus it, you know, at 5.6 with such a wide angle lens, it's probably not going to be a big deal. I hope you enjoyed looking at a few images from this lens. As I said, this is just a first look and a first impressions to let you know that it's here and it exists. It's an option. It looks great on a camera like the ZF, and it obviously looks better here on this Sunset Edition. Clearly the best color that you could possibly get for a ZF. So beautiful. The 7Artisans 18mm f 5.6 full frame, fully manual lens. Is it for you? Please do let me know in the comments below. And what's your favorite colored ZF? If you have one, you're thinking of getting one, or even if you never ever want to get one, which color would you get? Maybe you're more of a stealth, bomber, black, ZF sort of person. A lot of people are, but I like the colors. They've done a lot of good colors. Is there going to be any more good colors? I hope so. Do you remember how they refreshed the ZFC and we got a second set of colors? And then on top of that, they've now recently done some patterns, some designs on the ZFC. I hope we see something similar with the ZF. Gorgeous. Love it. Love using it. Powerful camera. And check out my end of year video, which did feature the ZF a few times with some interesting lenses. All right, everybody. Well, it's been so good to see you. And if this is your first time here, I'd love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. All right. Bye for now.